In Greenland, the landscape, for most of us from Europe or the West, we don't know much about it. It's not an intimately known landscape to us. It's essentially an alien environment, and we can think of it as wilderness. For the Inuit, this is their land, this is their life, this is their intimately known landscape, and this is how they live there. We went to Greenland to challenge ourselves, to have an adventure in this wilderness. But it was also the perfect opportunity to test some mapping software that Misha had been developing, which gives you a portable, highly detailed 3D map of the mountain. And if we could prove this technology worked, it would mean that mountaineers and skiers could potentially go further and explore the wildest routes without having to do weeks of reconnaissance work. Being able to visualize on this 3D map the backside of a mountain that we could possibly ski down having not seen before, it's the kind of thing you see in the movies. You're like people dropping in, committing to these big awesome lines that they know nothing about.
In a completely unknown place where there are no or very few established routes, was it actually good enough?
Greenland has always been something that I want to do. You can be in uncharted territory, skiing first lines, and you really feel like an explorer.
We'd originally planned to get into the area we were going to with dog sleds. That turned out not to be possible when we arrived, so we changed the plan and we were going to go with a boat.
I think one of the things that was so attractive about going to Greenland was that opportunity to explore a space which is so little touched by humanity.
We start hauling the polks out across the sea ice for the very first time. And then some Greenlandic guy starts shouting at us from the shore. He's like, "What are you doing?" And like, "What do you mean, what are we doing? We're going to go skiing. We're going to have this great adventure." And he's like, no, it's really dangerous. Like, you can't do that. It's like, you're going the wrong way.
He had a sort of big chisel with him, and he kind of crossed the fjord with us, sort of smashing at the sea ice, checking, and showed us a way across onto the other side, set a slightly creaking example of my understanding of the local sea ice conditions.
A lot of the sea ice we were travelling on is only a handful of inches thick, which it turns out is actually fairly solid, but yeah, it took us a while to get comfortable with that.
We'd been pulling the sleds all day, and it was like we were coming to the end of I was certainly quite tired by that point. And then we came round this corner and just saw this little blue hunter's cabin, and it was just like, that is just such a lovely place to be.
Everyone was just thinking, please let it be good, because I really don't want to have to set up the tents in the dark. And it was amazing.
We woke up reasonably early. We're like, wow, it's a beautiful day. We don't know how many beautiful days we're going to get, so we better go for it. It looks like there's just infinite possibilities.
We kind of all spotted the obvious objective. There was this amazing peak, which was the highest peak in this little range, and it was just perfect.
It's the first time we've sort of seen into the interior. These tens of kilometres of mountains, just chain after chain going off into the distance.
Holy smoke, look at that. Look at the sea ice. Oh my God. It goes for miles. You get to the top and you just look out and it's just sea ice and mountains for miles and miles and miles. And also you've just got that feeling of real isolation.
I'll lead down the first few turns and then get the guys to come past me one at a time. Boom, boom, down, and I'm just like... And I got that feeling straight away. It's like, I got that, I know it. On the first evening, we're like, wow, okay, well, that opens up a lot of possibilities. What can we do? Misha was looking at ideas and like, wow, we could go there, we could go there, we could go there. Stuart wants to go like 100 kilometers away and climb Everest and come back and then cycle home. We spent hours that evening trying to work out, like, trying to find this perfect line.
We'd seen a couloir and it looked quite intimidating. It looked about 1,000 meters long and sort of 40, 45, maybe 50 degrees in places.
I thought, well, we'll just go up a little bit and just have a ski down. We do a little bit and then we do a little bit more, and obviously we do a little bit more. And actually the snow felt fine, but there was a lot of questions. Certainly it gets pretty steep pretty quickly.
We're weighing up the questions around avalanche risk. The couloir steepens up quite a lot as you get higher up. And yeah, for sure, you're starting to ask yourself, is this a reasonable risk to be taking? In my way of thinking about it, it definitely always felt like there was more than just me on the slope because I'd just had a baby. It was my responsibility to take less risk for myself because any risk I was taking wasn't just mine.
Looks like I'm at the summit, guys.
Over the other side of the ridge, we look down and you can see right down to the sea, and you can see this tiny little speck of blue. You can see the hut. The first few turns Stuart makes, he's sort of...
That was certainly the toughest day in terms of descent for me, just because my legs were just dead by the point we'd got up to the top. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to take this one really nice and slowly.
This whole line is like 900 meters long, so we're probably 500 meters up, and I ski all the way out to the sea. You can just make out the guys coming down one at a time, making these tiny little turns high up on the slope.
It was one of those things where at the bottom I was like, brilliant, I loved that. But at the top I was definitely a bit more kind of, okay, I'm just going to take this one nice and steady today.
We're shipping out after 5 days of being here. So there's quite a lot of kit everywhere as everyone kind of tries to assemble things. This is a little incline, isn't it?
And the others seemed to get a bit of a kick out of pole crawling. And I just thought it was just quite boring, basically. You know, you clip this quite heavy thing to your harness and you put one foot in front and the other, and it just kind of like gently tugs at your back and gives you backache. The hours go past and you're just wondering like why you're going so slowly. And for me, there wasn't a whole lot to think about apart from when are we going to get to the end of the day.
We're packing up to go skiing, and a hunter and his team of dogs arrive in the distance on the sea ice.
Toto was saying he's fishing for seals. And I was saying in my typical way, no, he can't possibly be doing that. But he was fishing for seals. If you fall through the sea ice, you're about 20 seconds before you're hypothermic, and this guy has got his gloves off, hands in the water, fishing around, and just as hard as nails.
He was there with his sled and his dogs all waiting patiently, all of their eyes glued onto this kind of frozen seal that he'd pulled out of this hole, and it was all kind of swollen up.
I think you is go. You.
Oh, that's the greatest word.
So we set out, and we see there's two sides of a col, and on the east side there's a north-facing slope that drops down. It's the kind of line that you're like, wow, if that went, that would be just amazing.
There's a kind of narrow ridge went along that allows you to access the kind of north-facing slope we were planning on skiing.
I'm not sure I really need footage of me plummeting down here. Just got a bloody snowman on the bottom of my ski.
And clambering down over rocks to get into this big bowl.
We just couldn't see out of it, and it kind of looked okay, and it looked like there was just a passage you could just get out at the bottom.
You know, we've trusted FatMap up to this point, and it hasn't lied to us.
But annoyingly, the data we had for that part of the map was just slightly lower resolution than everything else, so there's no way of knowing for sure if it would actually go.
It looks so perfect, it's so tempting. Is it going to be worth it? If we do ski down it, and it is a cliff, then it's going to be really serious.
What do you want to do, guys?
I'd rather not, actually. I'm not feeling it.
As a group decision, it was too committing to head down this line.
So we turned back, and we'll never know the answer. It showed us how important that high resolution is when you're navigating intricate terrain.
The easy option would have been just to ski back down the way we came. We went to Greenland, I guess, to challenge ourselves. Another beautiful line with this west face, but the wind started to load snow potentially onto this west face. It's been like half an hour since the wind's picked up. This line, whether we knew it at the time, it kind of encapsulated what we were trying to do.
We were all a bit worried that we'd drop in to the couloir, and then either the couloir would avalanche or the cornice would fall on us. The decision was made that I was going to be put on a rope and jump up and down on the cornices. Try as I might, I couldn't get it to go. So that in itself gave a bit of reassurance that it wasn't going to fall down as we were in the couloir.
From the top, we saw the bowl ended in a cliff band. From the map, though, it looked like we could just exit via a narrow passage out left.
This is pretty much the only little passage where you can get into the next bowl and ski out to the valley, which is handy, given where we are.
I felt like the landscape was something which just caused this openness in my spirit. I felt like it was really this kind of real shared sense of wonder and appreciation, actually, of how lucky we were to be experiencing something so rare and so sort of untouched.
Part of the emotion, the reflection, is purely because you have more time and less distraction. The only things that you can talk about, think about, are yourselves and your experiences and your feelings. I had to leave behind my girlfriend, who was very keen to come, but she didn't know any of the guys and has probably done less skiing than the rest of us. But I decided I was going to ask her to marry me whilst we were out in Greenland.
To have worked on this thing for the last 3 years and have the map and everything come together and totally change what we're able to do, it's just amazing.
I remember turning to Ben and I was like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And he said, well, yeah, until you've done it once and then you see it's possible.
Having not been sure about whether I still wanted to go to remote places and whether I still even thought the risks were worth it, it definitely, for me, it just confirmed the value of going to these amazing places and having an adventure. Having questioned whether do I still want to do this stuff, the answer was undoubtedly yes.